Welcome. Thank you for coming to listen to the Lichen Sclerosus podcast. My name is Kathy, and this is our journal of learning about and living with lichen sclerosus. I have LS, and after 7 years of being misdiagnosed, getting no real answers, and finding a lack of information, I decided to start this podcast. And each week, I either research or talk to someone about an aspect of lichen sclerosus and bring you the information, so you don't have to go searching. And I tell you how it's been affecting my life. I bring you the straight talk without the medical jargon. I'm so excited for you to hear this episode because I'm going to tell you my diagnosis story. I did this way early in the inception of the podcast. I think it's like episode 3 or something, but I buried my story way at the end of the episode. But this time it's all about me, and I gave it a little twist. So instead of just me talking to you, I brought back one of my favorite guests, Lou. And if you haven't heard Lou, you need to pause right now, go back to Lou's diagnosis story, listen to her story, and then come back. Because if Lou doesn't make you smile, we got some serious work to do. She is just infectious, and I loved her energy throughout our whole conversation. I just felt like I was talking to my new best friend. So I couldn't think of anyone better to come back and interview me about my diagnosis story. And I'm so glad I did, because she asked some really great questions and we got deep. We got deep in there, and I hope that you get something out of it. And at the bare minimum, you're going to know me a little bit better. Before we jump into the episode, I just want to remind you, tomorrow is the first Lichen Sclerosus podcast virtual meetup. I am so excited. I cannot wait to see the ladies. I hope you're going to be there because I want to meet you too. If you haven't signed up yet, there's still time. If it's before November 14th at 2:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's what time we're going live. We're going to be having so much fun talking to each other, talking about lichen sclerosus, life, everything. Whatever comes up, we're going to be talking about it. And I don't do boring, so you know it's about to be lit. Definitely go out there, sign up. There is a confirmation email, so once you sign up, go into your email, confirm your email address, and you will get the information to join us. All right. Stay tuned to the end of the episode because I have some announcements, but I don't want to hold you any longer. I'm so ready to get into this conversation. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Lou about my diagnosis story.
Hey, Kathy.
Hey, Lou. I'm so excited.
Me too.
Okay.
Me too. All right, let's stop squeeing and get into the business of things.
All right. I'm all yours.
Okay. So I remember when we were talking, and even on the website, you've said that you were diagnosed in 2008, but you had symptoms from as early as 2013. But this is the first time that you're actually being interviewed about this. How are you feeling?
I'm pretty open, so I think it's going to be good. I like to get my story out. I think sharing all of our stories just makes it easier for the newly diagnosed and anyone who thinks they might have it, just to hear what we went through or what we're going through, to see similarities in our stories. And they say, you know what? I'm feeling that. Maybe I do have lichen sclerosus, or yeah, that happened to me, and now I know I'm not alone.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. No, I think that's absolutely wonderful and very, very brave of you to do as well, because talking about anything related to our genitals can be still such a taboo subject at times. So I have to thank you for breaking down those barriers for all of us women who are experiencing anything LS related or otherwise.
Absolutely.
So run me through then, back in 2013, what were you feeling at the time? You were like, oh, I don't think I don't think something's right down in my vulva or vaginal area.
So in 2013, I had to have a hysterectomy because it was like 3 months and I was bleeding at
Oh,
a period. Yeah. And some days it was light and some days it would be heavier. But for 3 months straight, I was nonstop bleeding. And I went to the gynecologist and said, listen, I'm bleeding, but I also want a hysterectomy because I don't want to have any more kids.
mm.
So,
I
so
am
they would,
done.
yeah, I'm done. I've had three. I'm done. And he was like, okay, well, let's find out what's going on with this bleeding. And it went like another month. I forget what he even did, gave me medicine or something, and it didn't stop the bleeding. So when I went back, he said, okay, well, let's do a hysterectomy. And I'm like, yes. Um,
Happy dance.
yes. And so we did the hysterectomy, and I noticed about, I would say a couple weeks later, I was just itching. And when they did
Yep,
the hysterectomy, they went in vaginally. So
yep,
when I had the itching on my vulva, I figured it was maybe because of the hysterectomy. They maybe
yeah.
I didn't know if it was a side effect of the hysterectomy. When I went in for my post-op appointment, he's like, "How are you doing?" And I said, "I'm good, except for I just have a lot of itching on my
Yeah,
vulva." And he just brushed it off. It was just like, "Oh, it's probably just because of the surgery or whatever. It'll
which
go away."
reaffirmed what you were thinking as well. Oh yeah, it's just from the surgery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I was just like, "Oh, okay." And didn't think anything of it.
Did he have a look or anything?
No.
Ah,
I
okay.
never looked. I didn't think to look.
What about him though, the gynae?
No, he didn't even look at me on my post-op.
Ah,
He did not even look at me. I came in and he just asked me some questions, asked me how I was doing, if I was bleeding, and that was it.
that's it.
He just said, make an appointment for my 1 year follow up, you know?
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, okay.
Yep.
He was the doctor. He'd done this multiple times. I figured he knew what he was talking about.
Yep. Yep.
That was how it started.
So you sort of went through, what would that be? What, 5 years of you just thinking, oh, yeah, I know I've had this checked out. Okay. All right. No, the gynecologist said that it was just because of like a post-op sort of thing. At what stage did you start to think, this has got to be something more? It's been, 6, 8, 9 months after my operation, and I'm still getting driven mad by this itch.
Yeah. So it was continuous. So when I went back for my 1 year, PAP and everything, I went to a different doctor. Hey, this is Kathy from the future. I have to jump in here because I forgot that I actually did go back to my original gynecologist for my 1 year checkup. He told me that the itch was probably due to an allergy and that it would probably just go away. On my 2 year anniversary of my hysterectomy, I went to a different doctor. So I'll let you get back into the conversation. I went to a different one because I didn't really trust him anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I decided to go to a different doctor for my PAP and to bring it up. When I went, it was a female this time, and I
Yeah.
told her, that I was having a lot of itching on my vulva, and she said it's probably an allergy. She's like, did you change your detergent? She's like, you probably have an allergy to maybe a soap or
Yeah. Yep.
something. And I told her, I said, well, we haven't changed our detergent. We haven't changed our soap. I don't know. And now
Yeah.
in that time, I'm getting closer to 40 years old. And so she's telling me our skin changes as we age. So maybe I've
That's not
developed an
something you want to
allergy.
hear just before you turn 40.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, I was already told my eyesight's going to be going when I turn 40. Now my skin is going to be
Yeah,
changing and getting
exactly.
allergic to stuff. So, yeah, she told me to use a sensitive wash.
Yep, yep,
So that's what I did. I went and I got some Vagisil sensitive
yep.
wash and I started using that.
And again, she did do a visual inspection and assessment.
No, well, she did. She did my pap
Oh,
smear.
yeah. Oh, yes.
I don't know if she looked at my vulva
Yeah.
because what I found is some of the gynecologists that don't really pay attention to the vulva.
Yes. Yeah.
Their focus is the vagina,
Yes. Yes.
so they're all in the vagina and it's like,
Everything else is glossed over.
yeah,
Yeah.
their peripheral vision is like, well, I don't see anything around it. I'm looking in this hole and that's
Yeah.
it.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. It's like, guys, everything's connected here. Come on.
Exactly. You want to look at this before you put that speculum in there, take a
Yeah.
look outside, you
Exactly.
know. But yeah, I don't know that she did. I really
Yeah.
don't.
Which is just infuriating in of itself because this has been a year in the making since you started getting this wretched itch. And then it'll be a good couple of years again that you're still putting up with this because no one's really taken, and it doesn't take a lot, no one's taken the time to do a visual inspection to see if there's anything going on here.
Exactly. Yeah. After that, it took a few more years for me to go back to the doctor because
Yeah.
I was so frustrated because I didn't want to be told again that it was an allergy or it wasn't a big deal. Like it wasn't a big deal for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was like, I don't want to waste my time and kind of feel like,
Dismissed.
yeah, dismissed. I don't get an answer,
Yep.
So yeah, I didn't go back until it was like emergency.
Yeah, which is just horrific in of itself. Like women should not have to wait until there's an emergency that happens to get this adequately treated and acknowledged.
Yeah,
It's such
exactly.
a yeah. It really makes my blood boil. And I am so sorry.
You don't have to apologize. You didn't do it. But yeah.
I know.
So
So,
yeah. And
so
and in that time, in the years that followed, is when I started noticing the color change. Like with what I've learned about lichen sclerosis, it said it manifests in like white patches or like
yeah,
the cigarette type paper looking skin. But for me, my vulva just turned like white. I'm darker skin, but when you looked at it, it kind of looked like ashy skin.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know how better to describe it, but it was just like,
There was a marked difference though from your normal skin color.
yes, it was like a
Yeah,
chalky white, and it was
yeah,
just like really odd. And it was enlarged too. My majora looked really fat, like
yeah,
abnormally
yeah.
fat. And I even asked my husband about it, and he was just like, "Oh no, it's fine. It was no
Yeah,
concern to him."
yeah, yeah. Yep, exactly.
And I'm like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Are you sure it doesn't look different?" He's
Are
like,
we seeing
"No,
the
you're
same
fine."
thing here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was like, "No, it's fine." So then I was just like, "Okay, maybe it's just in my head." But that doubt was there.
Yes. And when you start to notice that there's a change with your own anatomy, you can see it. And that's sort of that concrete evidence. That little seed of doubt has definitely been sown. And then you sort of start to say to yourself, well, yeah, something's not right here. Who do I turn to? Where do I go to?
Yeah, exactly. And because I had already been to the two doctors and they had kind of dismissed it, it was just like, is there really something there? Now the two
Yeah.
doctors and my husband are saying, no, you're fine. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so even though that doubt was there, I didn't go back to the doctor. I just kept using my Vagisil and
Yeah.
going about my business.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Before
Yeah.
I go on any further with the progression of the lichen sclerosus or the journey to getting diagnosed with, can I ask, did you notice any other changes, like with your sex life, for example, with your hubby, or even, forgive me if I am a bit too forward, but with masturbation as well? Did you notice that there was anything different there? Any pain, any discomfort, anything that you noticed that had changed?
Not at that time. No,
Yeah, yeah.
no. I noticed later on,
Okay.
but at that point, actually, we were very highly sexual and
Yes.
active. And no, I didn't have any pain. I didn't have any changes. Life was good back then.
Yeah, and and I think these are really important things to talk about as well, though, because particularly early on, you don't have to have those characteristic sort of signs as such. You can just have the
Hmm.
visual changes, but everything else seems to be okay at that point in time, but it can change later on. And those are such. I bet in retrospect, you're kind of like, ah, the pennies dropped. Okay, I get it now. So,
Right.
yeah.
And like I always say, LS is such a personal journey and it's so individualized that it affects each one of us differently.
Right.
Even though we may have similarities, each one of our journeys is different. And yeah, for me, there wasn't any discomfort or any pain. And it's funny because for me, it was definitely progressive.
Yeah.
Like as time went on, I got another symptom and another symptom and another symptom. And I know I've spoken to a lot of women who they've gotten two, three symptoms all at one time. They get the whole gamut at once.
Mm.
And some women who, have one and then don't get more for years.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. In your case, it was quite sort of insidious and very
yeah.
slow. It just sort of crept up, and every so often you get this another puzzling sort of symptom to pop up.
Yeah, and what happened with it being like that is I didn't connect them.
Yeah.
I did not connect the itching with the white vulva or the engorged vulva. I did not connect them.
Yeah. So walk me through then what happened in 2018. What was the impetus for you to finally get that diagnosis?
So one day while I was scratching, I felt a bump
Yeah.
on my labia majora right below my clitoris.
Mm.
And it felt like a hair bump, which we've all had hair bumps before,
Yeah.
but it was really big,
Yeah.
which was a little abnormal. And so I figured, oh, it'll clear up by itself like they normally do.
Yep. Yep.
And so I let a few days go by and it was a little painful, but it wasn't like really, really painful, which hair bump can be painful. So
Yeah.
again, didn't set off any alarm bells.
Yeah. Yep.
A week went by and this bump is still there and it's getting bigger.
Oh dear. Okay.
So I asked my husband to take a look at it. I said, honey, can you come look? I think I have this hair bump and it's not going away.
Yeah.
So he came over and he looked and he's like, honey, that doesn't look like any hair bump I've ever seen. And so
Okay.
I'm like, so now my heart is starting to race. I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
What's going on here?
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, take a picture with my phone and so I can see it. I don't know why I didn't even think about a mirror, but at the
I know
time,
the things we do.
yeah, but at the time I'm like, here, yeah, take a picture of my vulva.
Yeah.
So he did. And then I'm looking at this bump and I'm like, okay, this is not normal.
Yeah.
Now I'm full on scared.
Yeah.
And it looked like if you ever got burnt
Yeah.
and you have like that bump that comes up where you got burnt and it's full of like the water and
Yeah.
every,
Blister or something.
yeah,
Yes.
like that.
Yeah.
And that's what it looked like. So come to find out later after I started the podcast and started researching, I found out it's actually called a blood blister. So it is a blister. But at the time, I had no idea.
Yep.
It was the bump.
Yep.
So I went, of course, I jumped on Google and
Yes.
I'm like, and I start
Diagnosing yourself with
researching.
everything.
Yes. And then I find out about vulval cancer and I'm like,
Yes.
I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And,
You've gone down the rabbit hole and that's it.
yes. And so, because I had been down the rabbit hole with the itching too, and I looked up itching, but see, I wasn't using the correct terminology. I
Uh-huh.
put vaginal itch instead of vulval
Vulval.
itch.
Yes. Know your anatomy, ladies.
Yes, know your anatomy, use the proper terms
Yes.
because it will give you different results.
Exactly.
So I think I had read like one little blurb about lichen sclerosus, but the majority of what was coming up was everything but. So it never registered for me that I could have lichen sclerosus.
Yeah.
So now I have this bump. I'm down this Google wormhole. I'm ready to tell my family that I have cancer, and and I'm like, okay, I have to go see the doctor. I
Yeah.
have to go see the doctor. So I call my original gynecologist, the one that did my hysterectomy. I call the office, and I'm like, I need to get in to see my gynecologist now. And
Yes.
they're like, well, he's not working today. We can fit you in with the nurse practitioner.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't care. I need to see somebody today. And so they gave me the last appointment of the day
Yes.
with the nurse practitioner. And I
Yeah.
was like, I'm there. I got in the car and I went over there. And the whole time I'm thinking, this lady's going to tell me that I have cancer. And what am I going to do from there? I'm just convinced that
Yeah.
I have cancer.
Yeah. There's nothing else at all. There's no other
Yeah,
possibility.
nope, I have cancer. How am I going to take care of my kids? And yeah, it's going through the whole 9 yards.
Yes.
So I get up there and I get in the stirrups or whatever, and she comes and she starts examining me and she's looking at the blister and I start telling her, I think I have cancer. So she's looking and she's like, no, I don't think it's cancer. And I'm like, well, what is it? What do I have?
Give me
And she's
something.
like, yeah. And so she's like, I don't know yet, but she's like, I'm gonna cut it open. So she doesn't give me any anesthetic or anything.
Oh my
She's
God.
just, yeah, she's like, I'm gonna cut the blister. So I'm like, okay. I'm figuring, okay, she knows what she's doing or whatever.
Yeah.
So she gets her little scalpel and she cuts the blister. She's like, oh, it's full of blood and water. And I'm like, okay, so what does that mean? She's like, well, I want to do a biopsy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's good because that'll tell you I have cancer.
Yep. Yep. Again, just convinced. I don't care what you say
Yeah,
until you tell me
just
otherwise.
yeah, exactly. Just get the proof and
Yep.
let's move on to treatments and what we're gonna do.
Exactly. Yes.
So because she's a nurse practitioner, she has to get the okay from the gynecologist
Yes.
to do the biopsy.
Yes.
She calls the gynecologist in. Now, the gynecologist that's on that day is the wife of my gynecologist. They have
Yes.
a practice together.
Yeah.
I've never met this woman before, never seen her in my life. So, mind you, this is the last appointment of the day. She goes and she gets the gynecologist who I'm pretty sure was with another patient. And so she brought her in and I'm in stirrups with my vulva out to the world.
Yes.
And so the gynecologist comes in and the nurse practitioner tells her she had this blister and I want to do a biopsy.
Yeah.
The gynecologist comes in, she looks in between my legs and she's like, that looks like a herpes blister.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm laying there like,
I'm sorry. What?
what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello. I've been with my husband almost 20 years.
Yep.
I trust him, and I know I haven't been doing anything.
Yep.
So there's no way I have herpes.
Yeah. Yep.
So the nurse practitioner, she tells her, well, I want to do a biopsy. And she tells her, you can't do a biopsy because you cut into the tissue too much. I don't know what she did. She messed up the tissue where the gynecologist told her that she could not do a biopsy.
Okay.
And she's like, just treat her for herpes. Turned around, walked out, and left.
Wow.
Yeah. She didn't look at my records. She didn't ask my name. She didn't even talk to me. She
Yeah.
just walked in and said,
This is what I
herpes,
think it is.
treat
Goodbye.
her, goodbye. Yeah.
That is appalling.
I'm laying there like, is this really happening?
Yeah.
Because you're in a position of weakness when
And
you're laying
vulnerability.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Laying there with your most intimate parts open to the whole room.
Yep.
And
And not only that, but you're afraid as well, and
yes.
unsure of what's happening, and yeah, you get told this news.
Yeah. And then for her to just throw that out there, like not asking any questions, not asking my history, not asking anything.
Yep.
It was just felt like, wow.
The
Wow.
dismissal.
Yeah. So thankfully this nurse practitioner had some knowledge, and she said, I don't think it's herpes. Do you mind if I check something in the computer real quick? And I'm like, go ahead. You
Yeah.
take all the time you need.
Yes.
Because I know I don't have herpes.
Yeah. In the meantime, can I get out of the stirrups, please?
Yeah. No, but I'm still laying there in the stirrups. So I'm like, I just pushed the sheet down a little bit over my
Yes.
knees
Yep.
just to give me some warmth. So she goes and she types something in the computer, and then she comes back and she says, I think you have lichen sclerosis. I'm like, what's lichen sclerosis? And she's like,
Yeah.
well, it's an autoimmune disease because of the whiteness of the discoloration of your vulva, and lichen sclerosis can cause blisters. I think it's lichen sclerosis. And then she says, do you itch? Does your vulva itch? And I'm like, do I itch? Lady, I've been telling people for years I've been itching and trying to figure out why I've been itching.
Yep.
And
Yep.
she's like, yeah, it can cause some pretty bad itching to the point that ladies scratch holes into their underwear. I'm like, yeah, I wore one of my last 3 good ones. So we had a good little laugh.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, so how do we get rid of it? And then she says, it's not curable.
Yep.
And yeah, and all the elation that I had just felt from finally having a name just dropped. And it was
Yes.
just like, whew, it was like deflating a balloon. I was
Yep.
just like, what what? Can you say
Yeah.
that again?
Yep.
And
That sheer
yeah,
disbelief is just, yeah.
yeah, because it felt like getting to the finish line of a marathon, and you're waiting for your prize, your medal, and they're just saying, nope,
Just
you get
kidding.
this, instead of getting a gold medal, you get this little paper certificate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you can
Yeah.
you can treat it, but you are gonna have to deal with this for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So so yeah, that was very deflating. But I'm a pretty positive person, so I tried to just say, okay, well, I'll just deal with it. She said, I'm gonna give you this prescription, and I'll see you back here in 2 weeks. If it
Okay.
clears up your symptoms, then you have lichen sclerosis.
Okay. What did she prescribe?
She prescribed clobetasol,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
but when I went to the pharmacy, my insurance wouldn't cover clobetasol without a prior written approval. So they gave
Uh,
me a different medicine. and I don't know how to pronounce it. I'll put the name in the show notes because I cannot pronounce it. Yeah, I'm awful with these medical terms. But yeah, so they gave me that and my symptoms went away. I was finally itch free.
Yeah.
The blister was gone within a couple of days. I started getting my color back
Yep.
and I was overjoyed. And actually, before I could even start, this is the universe just kicking me one more good time in the ass.
Yep.
So that was on a Friday when she gave me the prescription when I saw her.
Yeah.
Over that weekend, I got so sick. I was just I don't know, I caught a bug or something, but I was so sick and I was just in bed with coughing and fever and it was so bad. And
Uh,
let me tell you, the flare that I had while I was sick was so bad. It was just like being sick took my flare times 3 or 4. It was
yes.
the worst I've ever felt.
Oh, that's
I was
horrible.
itching, the blister was hurting like crazy.
Yep.
It was just ridiculous.
Yep.
So it was like like I said, I was only sick for the weekend, which was a strange that I'm only sick for a few days. But then when I got better, I started using the it was a cream. She didn't even give me an ointment. She gave me
Oh,
a cream.
yep.
But at the time I didn't know that you should have an ointment instead of a
Yes.
cream.
Yes.
I started using it and it cleared me up. 2 weeks went by and something happened. I couldn't go in. I had to reschedule for the next week. But when I did go back in, I was just so happy because I was symptom free and I knew what I had. And it was just like,
You had a name for
finally,
it.
yes, I have a name. I have a plan. I know what to do.
Yep.
I can take care of myself.
Yep.
And so I went in and I was just overjoyed. I thanked her so much for giving me my life back because it really did feel like I can live again. I can sleep properly without, worrying about and the itching and
Yes.
being distracted by that.
Yep. Waking up in
So
the middle of the night and find yourself scratching.
absolutely.
Yep. Yep.
And she just said, okay, you're welcome. Use it as needed whenever the itching comes back
Mm,
and keep your annual visits for your PAP.
yeah.
That was it. And
Okay.
she sent me on my way
Yep.
and nothing else.
Mm,
No maintenance schedule,
no.
no real follow up, nothing, no deeper conversation about what this was,
Yep.
nothing.
Yep. Yep. And I think
Yeah,
that is such a disappointing part of the diagnostic journey for a lot of us. I imagine a lot of us will have a very similar experience as well. You get this diagnosis, oh yeah, here's your cream, get on your way, sort of thing. It's like, okay, but what does this mean for me now? And
right.
and you were what? How old were you when you were diagnosed?
I was 40.
Okay, so there you go. You're 40. You're not exactly old by any stretch of
Mm-mm.
the imagination. Right? You've still got a healthy sex drive. You've still got kids to look after. You've still got
Mm-hmm.
a social life. You've still got all of these things happening that LS can impact on, but you don't have anyone that you can sort of turn to or ask about it because no one's given you the information.
Right. And that's why when she said just use it as needed and the fact that it really had cleared me up so quickly,
Mm,
I just figured, oh, okay, this
yep,
is not going to be an issue.
yep,
This is not going to be a problem.
yep,
And I pretty much went about life just using it when needed, which maybe was once a month, once every other month. It wasn't major.
yeah,
As time went on, I became more conscious of it.
yeah,
Like, I think having the medication, okay, so it's really strange because when I was having symptoms before my diagnosis, it was just an irritant. It was like, okay, I'm itching.
Yeah.
But after my diagnosis and when I had medication, then it was like a reality. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so hard to explain, but it was
Now that you
like,
sort of have something tangible to put it on, it became much more real, I suppose.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then it did start affecting my sex life
Yeah.
because now I'm putting this medication on, and then my husband
Yeah.
wants to get frisky, and I just put this medication on, and I don't
And
know
you're
how
like,
it's going to affect you. So
exactly.
I don't really want to. I'd like to be intimate with you, but I'm kind of scared to be intimate with you. Or he wants to go have oral sex, and I'm like, nah, you can't do that right now.
I have that exact thing. I am like, no way. I have got steroid cream smeared all over me right now. It ain't happening, sunshine.
Yes, yes. And so, yeah. And so the more you pull away, and mind you, I did not tell him.
Yeah.
I don't know why, because
Yeah.
I talked to him about everything,
Yeah.
literally everything.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I think up until this past year, I didn't tell him. I didn't tell him
Wow.
about the medicine. It,
Oh, what a
I
lonely
kind of was
journey for you.
embarrassed. If I'm being really honest, I was embarrassed
Yeah. Yeah.
because I didn't want him to think that I was dirty because
Yeah.
I didn't know what this was. I
Yeah.
didn't have the knowledge that I have now.
Yeah.
I didn't have it back then. Mind you, she didn't tell me much, and
Exactly.
I didn't go looking for answers. I
Yeah.
just took her at her word and I moved on.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is such a protective mechanism, though, because you've been given a diagnosis that is lifelong, and like everything that's been going on has kind of been validated. But at the same time, sometimes having a bit too much knowledge can be really overwhelming, even when you're seeking it for yourself. And it's hard enough trying to digest it for your own personal understanding and your own personal journey, let alone trying to explain it to the person that you love and that you're intimate with. It's just, it's your womanhood. It's something that is, and it's an intimate part of your body. And
Right.
and when you're a sexual being as well, it's really difficult to get your own head around.
Right. So that's when it started affecting our sex life.
Yeah,
And then the less I was having sex, I'd noticed then that I was feeling like a burning
yeah,
sometimes when we would have sex, and I figured maybe that was because I was scratching. Maybe I had scratched myself too hard.
yeah,
And so while we were having sex, maybe he was rubbing against a scratch. Again, still don't have any real knowledge
yep,
about lichen sclerosis. Just living with it, not knowing anything about it.
yep.
Looking back now, I know that maybe it was tears or
Fissure
fissures or
or
something
something.
like that.
Yeah.
So I would I would try to find the pleasure in the pain.
Yes,
This is
yes.
so weird.
No, it is not at all. I am sure all of us can relate to that because it's so bloody true.
Yeah,
Yep,
so I would just be like, maybe it doesn't sting so bad. Maybe it feels a little good. But
yeah, yep,
I also noticed that it would take a lot longer for me to climax.
yes, yeah,
So whereas before he could make me climax in a matter of 5 to 10 minutes, now
yeah,
it was it was it was just different.
yeah,
I just couldn't get there
yeah,
to the point where sometimes I would just be like, I give up. It's just not
yeah,
going to happen.
yeah. I'm done here.
Yeah. And I think part of it was physical, but a part of it was also mental
Yes,
because thinking about the fact that it does burn or does that I'm feeling this little bit of pain, but
Yeah.
also that, I don't know. It was
Like,
just
how do I
so much.
explain this to him, and what does this mean for me? And there's all of those things that just sort of rattle around, even when you're not really thinking about them actively. They're still in there.
Yeah.
And when you try to
And
get intimate, it's, not
yeah,
happening.
and sex is such a mental thing too. It's not
Yeah.
just physical. And like I said, we've been together for 20 years, and when you're that connected to someone and been with someone that long, it is way more mental than just physical, because you know each other's bodies and each other's triggers
Yeah.
like your own body.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
if you're not if you're not in that same headspace, you're just not going to
It's not going to
reach
happen.
climax. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's not going to happen.
So what was hubby saying about it? What was his reaction?
My husband's so great. He completely gave me space. He never pressured me. If I didn't feel like having sex, he was fine.
Yeah,
He never made me feel like
that you
I
were
was letting
inadequate.
him down, or that, yeah, like I wasn't doing my duty or anything
Yeah,
like that. I mean, because after I had my second daughter, I went through a whole space where I was not trying to be intimate. I had two small children. I was tired. I was a housewife, and
yeah,
I never saw myself as being a housewife. I've always been a go-getter, always
yeah,
been career oriented, and now here I am at home with two little kids, and
yeah.
this is not where I saw myself. So I
I
kind of
feel
went
you,
through a
sister.
little bit of a depression,
Yeah,
and it just wasn't happening. And he again, he just gave me the space that I needed. And
yeah,
so when I was going through this and I started pulling away, he just gave me space.
yeah,
And I know a lot of ladies don't have that luxury.
yeah.
So it can definitely be hard and put a strain on the relationship.
And
But yeah,
I think
thankfully, I didn't have to do that.
absolutely. I think that's really important. I think you and your husband had a really solid foundation to start with by the sounds of things. And he knew
Yes.
that you'd sort of go and communicate with him if you were able and ready. And I think with if there's other women out there who are listening, I'm not really sure how to broach this with my husband and make me feel pressured about this, or I'm feeling really inadequate. I think a big thing to take away is to try to communicate with them as possible, because yes, it's embarrassing, but without knowing what your spouse is going through, it can be a real hindrance to that relationship. So trying to be as open as possible and as honest as possible and getting them involved in information can really help to break down those barriers a little bit and make them feel a little bit more involved and a little bit more, hopefully, a little bit less dismissed or
Hmm.
pushed away as a partner. Because it impacts on
Absolutely.
both of us. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I actually just did 2 episodes ago now an episode called How to Still Have a Great Relationship Despite Lichen Sclerosis.
Yes.
And it has a lot of tips on how you can support each other, how your
Yes.
partner can support you, and how you can support your partner.
Yeah.
Because lichen sclerosis definitely happens to the relationship. It
Yes.
doesn't just happen to us, it also happens to our partner
Yes.
in a different way. And we can't, I mean, yeah, we're going through it physically, but we can't just dismiss them and say, okay, well, this is happening to us and they're just going to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
If you're in a solid relationship, or if you care about your partner, then you want to make sure that they're okay too.
Absolutely.
And by you doing that, they're going to make sure that you're okay even more, because you're taking them into consideration.
Exactly. It's a team effort.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, he definitely gave me space and allowed me to go through what I was going through. So I spent 2 years just doing the steroid whenever I needed it,
Yeah.
and it worked fine. And then in February, I started getting new symptoms.
Oh, God.
I started getting fissures, and it was my first time where I had these fissures, and I noticed them because I may have had them before, but it wasn't noticeable.
Yeah.
But I got them, and they were freaking hurt. I mean,
Yes.
it was right along where the elastic to my underwear were, so it was rubbing,
Ooh.
and it was just like when you sit or getting in and out of the car, it was
Yep.
just so much pain. And that's when I said, I need to start looking this stuff up. What is it
Yes.
that I have?
Yeah.
Because again, the nurse practitioner, didn't tell me anything. She didn't
Yep.
tell me there were more things coming.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
She never said anything about fissures. And at the time, it's funny if you go back and listen to my old my episodes, like my first couple episodes, I didn't even know the word fissures.
Yeah.
I called it cuts. I feel like I have cuts, like paper cuts. And I mean, to
You own what
not
you
even
know.
no. I mean, like I said, I called the blood blister, I was calling it a boil or a lesion or something like that.
Yeah.
It
Yep.
was, you don't have the language,
Yep.
and it's so important to have the language when we go talk to the medical professionals, because that's what they're looking for.
Exactly.
And you might describe one thing and they know it as something else, and they don't connect the two.
Exactly.
So it's definitely important to have the proper language.
I find with LS as well, it really falls back to us as women who are experiencing the symptoms to do a lot of hand holding when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to the medical professionals to say, this is what I'm experiencing. This is how long it's been going on. Or this is how it's impacting me. This is what I've noticed about my own vulva, because it really seems that they miss this so often, or it's misdiagnosed something else. And we really have to be our own advocates for it to get the correct diagnosis.
Absolutely. We got to do the research, and we got to go in there armed with the knowledge,
Yes.
because if not, we will get gaslit, we will get railroaded, and
Yep.
we'll end up being misdiagnosed for 5 to 15 years,
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. It's absolutely appalling.
Yep. So yeah, so that's actually the origin story of the podcast, because after that I said, I don't know what it is that I have, and I cannot imagine that I'm the only one out here with lichen sclerosis that does not know.
Yep.
First I looked for one, and all I could find were episodes where doctors were discussing lichen sclerosis, but they were
Yes.
using these words that I had no clue what they meant.
Yes. The technical jargon and
Yeah. And
yeah.
I'm like, I have to be a med student to freaking figure out what it is that I have.
Yeah. Yep.
And and then looking on the internet and researching and reading these research papers and these articles, these medical articles, and having to literally look up every other word because I did not know. And so I figured there has to be a way to bring this information in layman's terms to women who are suffering from this
Yeah.
disease.
Yep. Absolutely.
My husband says it's a calling, and it's true. I was called to start this podcast and
Yep.
bring this information and advocate for us, and just try to be there for women the way that I wish someone was there for me. And
Absolutely.
I want to be the information that I wish was out there when I was looking for it.
Yes. Yep. And I think it's such a beautiful thing that you're doing, because when you are diagnosed with something that so little is known about, but that's actually surprisingly common, you can feel really alone in the journey and so removed from, I mean, and again, no one talks about any vulval issues or genital issues, or the closest thing that you kind of get is breast cancer. You're talking about a
Mm-hmm.
female breast, but no
Right,
one's talking about what's happening between the legs. And
right.
it can be such a isolating thing, and for you to share your knowledge and your journey and a lot of other women's journeys and health professionals as well who actually have an understanding of LS is wonderful. And it's really, it's just beautiful that you were able to find your calling to do this, and you're doing a damn good job.
Oh, thank you.
You are welcome.
Yeah, I definitely, how do I say it? I feel enriched when I get an email or a direct message from a lady and she says the podcast has been a comfort to her, or she was just diagnosed, and being able to find the information on the podcast has been so helpful for her and has been able to lead her into knowing what to ask her doctor or knowing what to do to take care of herself.
Yeah.
Then I feel like I've done my job.
Yeah.
This is exactly why I'm here, and I'm doing exactly what I set out for. And it's so rewarding for me, and it's kind of selfish because it just makes me feel so good that I want to keep doing it.
No, it is not selfish in any way, shape, or form. I think it's actually quite selfless. Again, you're doing this because there are women out there who are in exactly your position, and it's no position any woman. So I think it's a very selfless thing. So tell me now, how are things going? You do visual inspections on yourself every month?
I do. I have, and I actually, after our last conversation, a few episodes later, I actually shared my story, my first time checking my vulva and the
Yes.
fear that I did have. And it is scary. It is very scary the first time that you go to check your vulva because you don't know what you're going to see.
Yeah.
And having seen all of the pictures and things online, you don't want to know that that's what your vulva looks like.
Yeah.
But the first time I put it off for like a month, I ended up having to schedule it like a date and treat it like I was going on a date.
Yes.
Because I kept putting it off. I did do it and I do check, and it gets easier if you keep doing it. But yeah, I have lost half of my labia minora. The bottom half is reabsorbed into my labia majora, and my clitoral hood is starting to fuse over my clitoris.
Yeah.
But I don't have any of the white skin, any of the cigarette type paper. I
Yeah.
don't have any of that, none of the white spots.
Yeah. That's cleared up, but
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, that's
And
definitely cleared up. I just
yeah.
have some of the fusing
Yeah.
and the itching. And I treat it with my medication. I did eventually get a clobetasol ointment, but it stung. Like when I was using it the first couple of times, it stung. And I didn't like it because it was really oily.
Yeah.
So I went back to the other medication, but I got it in ointment instead of cream. And so that's what I use.
See, late, if you aren't happy with the medication that you're using, there are other alternatives out there. So don't put up with discomfort if it's causing you a lot of it. Speak to your healthcare provider about it.
Absolutely. And if you can't tolerate a steroid, they do have the topical calcilidrin. I can never say that word. Calcilidrin. That's not how you say it, but inhibitors.
That's a mouthful for me as
the
well.
TCIs, yeah. They do have that. So you don't have to have a steroid. They're not as potent and they don't fight against vulvar cancer as well, but you do have some protection.
Absolutely. Can I ask, what was the conversation like with your husband when you processed enough and got the courage for yourself to talk to him about the diagnosis?
Well, the first time I told him, it was kind of in passing. I would say it was probably like a year after my diagnosis. He saw me putting the cream on.
Ah, yes.
And he was like, "What's that?" And so then I told her, I said, well, remember a while back I went to the doctor. I have this disease called Lichen Sclerosus. It's an autoimmune. It's not sexual. It's not a sexual disease. I just have to put this on every so often when I feel itchy. And he was like, oh,
Okay.
okay. Yeah.
Yep.
And that was it. And from then I could tell him when he wanted to have oral sex or have sex and I just put my medicine on, then I could tell him, well, honey, I just put my medication on. We can't do that right now. And so then he would understand.
Yeah.
But I didn't
Yeah.
start having full blown on conversations about lichen sclerosis and what it was until after I started the podcast and started learning about it. As I started learning about it, I would start having conversations with him so that he could understand what it was. And now, we talk about it all the time. And I share with him the struggles that some of the ladies are having and just get the partner's point of view. And
Yeah.
he's been real supportive.
Good. And I imagine that once he's been in line with the information, it makes him feel a little bit better of how he can support you as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you. Is there anything else that you want to add that I've missed or any pearls of wisdom you want to pass on to your lovely listener?
Just if you do have a partner, try to be as open as you can with them. I definitely know the struggle, but it has been a lot easier as far as communication and not putting that pressure on myself that I was putting before I told him. That pressure of, is he going to feel some kind of way? I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, it does. Absolutely. Because
so just to be open, try to be open with your partner as much as you can. And it helps not to internalize it. Having that sounding board, it's so helpful because when you're internalizing it, you don't realize the mental aspect of it, that the mental effects that it has on you until it's too late. It starts changing your personality silently. I didn't realize I was withdrawing until after I withdrew.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It perpetuates shame.
Yes.
And anything again, anything related to our genitals, it's a shameful thing. It's not something that you talk about, and it's something that even if it's not something that we've done to ourselves or deserve or anything, it's still a shameful thing to carry. But I don't want anyone to feel ashamed about this because it's not something of our doing. It's not something that we have asked for or that we deserve. It's a wretched disease that can affect anyone out there. And blokes can get it as well. So
Exactly.
Yeah. No shame.
Yeah, absolutely. No shame, and you are not alone.
Yes.
If you need someone to talk to, please reach out because that's what I'm here for. You are not bothering me. I don't know how many DMs I got. Oh, hey, I don't mean to bother you. You are not bothering me. Trust me.
Yes.
I want you to message me. I want you to email me. I look forward to it.
Yes.
So you're doing me a favor. You're making my day. So please reach out. I will help you any way I can, even if it's just someone to talk to and share with. If you need resources, I can try to help you find resources. I've helped ladies find doctors. I've helped ladies find barrier creams and things like that to use. So there's no question too small, too big. If I can't answer, I can point you in the right direction to somebody who can, or I will look up the answer. But do not get in touch because you think you're going to be bothering me.
I think that's a really beautiful.
I appreciate you so much, Lou, for doing this. I had so much fun again.
It was weird and kind of exhilarating being on the other side of the couch. So
Now you're going to go start your own podcast, aren't you?
No, that's far too much effort. I'll leave that to you because you're a pro at it. I'm just like, oh yeah, call me in whenever.
Okay. All right. When I need a guest host, I'll call you up.
Exactly. Thank you.
No, thank you. You did all the work. All right. Well, I appreciate you. And until next time, we'll leave it here.
Did I tell you or did I tell you? Lou is so much fun. Thank you once again, Lou. You did an amazing job. I couldn't have imagined it any better. So what did you learn out of my diagnosis story? Did you have a similar situation? Did anything resonate for you? Make sure you DM me or send me an email. I'm at Lichen Sclerosus Podcast on Instagram, at Lichen Sclerosus Support Network on Facebook, and Kathy with a K at lichensclerosuspodcast.com for email. I meant what I said. Reach out to me. You make my day. Every time I get a message, every time I get an email, I just cannot say that enough. So, announcements. I am going to be taking a break. I've done this podcast since February, off and on, taking a few weeks off when I'm not feeling well, but I'm taking a deliberate break this time. I'm feeling fine, but the holidays are coming, and with my job, I'm working a lot of hours. Last week, I worked 71 hours. And in order for me to continue to bring you quality and not be sleep deprived, I need to take a break. And it's going to allow me to plan for season 2 and bring you more interviews, better episodes. I could do deeper research and overall bring you better content. So I'm going to finish out November. The last episode of season 1 will be on November 27th. That's the last Friday of this month. So you've got 2 more episodes after this. And then I will be back on Friday, February the 5th. Now, just because I'm not doing the podcast does not mean that I will be gone. I'm still going to be active on Instagram, a little bit of Facebook. I'm not too active there, but Instagram is the best way to reach me. I'm also going to be starting a YouTube Lichen Sclerosus tips kind of Q&A channel, kind of what I wanted to do on lives, but just have it on YouTube, have it be evergreen so that you can find it. Just short, maybe 5 to 7 minute videos answering specific questions or giving specific tips. So if you are interested in that, follow me on Instagram or sign up at lichensclerosuspodcast.com/connect, because I will be announcing all of that once it's set up and I start producing content for that. I'll probably also put them out on IGTV and on the Facebook page. So if you follow me on either one of those, you'll still see the content as well. I don't think I've ever said, but Lichen Sclerosus Podcast is available on YouTube. There is a YouTube channel where you can listen to the podcast on YouTube. And I'm also available on your smart speaker. So all you have to do is ask whoever your smart speaker is, ask them to listen to Lichen Sclerosus Podcast, and you'll hear my voice. So I just wanted to let you know that's what's going on. I hope this episode wasn't too long for you. I know it's a lot longer than my usual episodes, but I wanted you to get the whole story without chopping it up. And yeah, let me know. I need your feedback. Let me know. I have one more ask. If you enjoy this podcast and you find it helpful, please go out to Apple Podcasts or iTunes and leave me a review. It helps new ladies know what the podcast is about and get a feel for what I'm talking about and my style, and let them know that I don't suck. So yeah, leave me a ratings and review, and I really appreciate you. I hope you have an amazing week. I hope to see you tomorrow, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.